what are the numbers as best as you can gather right now concerning Texas A&M?
Right. So it's actually not an outbreak in the program. There are 3 positives within the program, and only 2 of those are players. So the issue with Texas A&M right now is the contact tracing. So the director of athletics, Ross Bjork, told us yesterday that there are 16 people in quarantine right now. I can't confirm or deny whether that's all players or staff members as well who are being quarantined right now. We know at least a dozen of those are players, and all of that happened on the trip to South Carolina. 16 people are out just from somebody sitting in a middle seat on that plane. So that's really caused some issues for the Aggies. The contact tracing, like I said, it's defined as being within 6 feet of somebody for more than 15 minutes. And the contact tracing comes from CDC guidelines. That is not an SEC rule. You cannot find a way out of those protocols. And right now you can't test out of quarantine in the NCAA. And so that ultimately resulted in the Tennessee game being pushed to December 12th. Right now, we think Ole Miss is not going to happen next week either, but Ross Bjork did tell us it's still a little bit early to be discussing that just because that is a whole conference decision. The good news here is that the SEC did allow for some flexibility with these added in bye weeks. And so now it's looking like they're going to use that December 19th championship day to kind of make up some games there. So there is a little bit of flexibility. I still think they'll play a full season, but things are just being shifted around a little bit right now. We know who they're playing and we know where they're playing. We just don't know exactly what order they'll be playing the rest of the season.
All right, so I don't have the schedule in front of me. I'm trying to weigh this out. I believe we've got 6 weeks left of games, including the SEC championship game weekend, possibly no Ole Miss game next weekend, which would be the 21st. The Tennessee game's rescheduled for December 12th. Championship weekend could be an option for a number of teams across the SEC, which puts Texas A&M in an interesting situation if they're on the field the same weekend as the SEC championship game, if they continue to win and have one loss that weekend.
Yeah, definitely an interesting scenario all across the league. I think the good thing, too, is that A&M is not alone here. And I actually don't think that rescheduling the game is the worst case scenario either, because worst case would actually probably be that you have a completely depleted roster and have to go on the road to Tennessee and then end up losing that game and then lose your entire hope of being in the college football playoff or any other postseason hopes that you might have there. I think, and this is just my opinion, I think good teams and well-coached programs are successful because they know how to make adjustments. And I think if A&M is the top 5 team that they want to be and that they think they are and that the AP is saying that they are right now, it shouldn't really matter if they play Tennessee or Ole Miss, tomorrow or a month from now. I think the biggest negative with all of this is that they had some momentum rolling. And in college football, once you've got momentum, you do not want to lose it. But I think there are maybe some positives. I'm an eternal optimist, so I'm going to look at, some of the positives here. There are some banged up players on A&M's roster right now, and that kind of gives them a chance to heal. Isaiah Spiller is a big one. He's a little bit banged up. Jimbo Fisher said he could have actually gone back in the game after he left at South Carolina, but just gives him a little bit of extra time. Michael Clemens is out 5 to 6 weeks. Now that gives him maybe the possibility of coming back. Damani Richardson, who was one of the positive cases, as well as Jared Hawker and Ryan McCollum along the offensive line. So I think it's good that the SEC is kind of realigning this and using that championship day as a makeup day. And you know what? At the end of the day, A&M still has their top 5 win. And, if worst case scenario, they were going to lose one of these games with Tennessee or Ole Miss, at least you're losing a game against a 4-loss team. And, in theory, too, you might be playing the Ole Miss game or LSU or however this plays out the day before the college football playoff announcement is made. And so there are some things that actually could go your way with this whole situation, despite what it might look like from the outside.
And when you said the only negative that you could find, in addition to not actually playing the game, was breaking the momentum. If anyone was going to question the Aggies' momentum at this point, just look at the score against South Carolina. My goodness. Now, South Carolina is not a great team by any stretch, but nobody else is beating South Carolina 48-3. Not even Florida. So an exceptional performance by the Aggies.
Really exceptional performance, Mark. Like you said, this was actually Texas A&M's most lopsided SEC win since, I believe, Auburn in 2012. And this is kind of what the Alabamas and the Clemsons and the Ohio States of the college football world do. They just shellac their opponent when they're supposed to, and they go on the road and they do it in their house. This is one of the most complete games that I've seen from A&M in a really long time. And I'm actually asking the question, what's better, the A&M offensive line or the A&M defensive line? That's not a question that we've asked in a very, very, very long time. I mean, there really is very little to complain about when you look back at A&M's 48-3 win over South Carolina in Columbia. I mean, for the fifth straight game, the offensive line didn't allow a sack. They were so balanced offensively, and that wasn't what I was expecting to be a part of A&M's offensive identity this year. But they had 530 total yards of offense, 266 through the air, and 264 on the ground. Really can't get much more balanced than that. They averaged 7.8 yards per play, nearly perfect on third down. They took care of the football. They were exceptional in the red zone. I mean, really just a lot to be happy about. I said on your show last week, too, on the other side of the ball, that it was going to be important for the Aggies to shut down South Carolina's run game, and they did just that. They only allowed 150 total yards, had 10 tackles for loss. I mean, we're expecting them to be good at this point. But like I said, A&M believes that they are a top 5 team in this country. The AP is showing that, yeah, they probably are in that top 5 realm in the college football world right now. They're leading the SEC in total defense, only second to Georgia in stopping the run. And you know what? Tougher tests for sure are to come for the rest of the year. But right now, they're just playing good, sound, fundamentally dominant football. And I think the numbers are speaking for themselves.
So, Leah, you touched upon the great aspects of this South Carolina game in particular as this train keeps rolling and gaining momentum as you look over the first several games of the season and look toward what the challenges are coming up. Your thoughts about, I think you've highlighted most of the standouts. Any possible concerns? And I'm not talking about necessarily weak units on this team because I don't think those exist, but anything that needs to be cleaned up that could really make this for a special season?
You know, I think right now the biggest area of concern, and this is not to say that they haven't improved from last year, I think the secondary is still something that I'm a little bit, I guess, cautiously optimistic about. You know, as the year goes on, I think we've seen the progression that they've made. But as a whole, a lot of areas on this team have surprised me that I didn't think were going to. The offensive line is a huge one for me. Kellen Mond has really just taken huge strides, and all of his skill weapons that he has going for him have made really big strides as well. So I think if the Aggie defense can play a little bit more consistently, just kind of clean some things up. But I mean, I think a couple weeks ago, I said the important thing was taking care of the ball and cleaning up those self-inflicted wounds and those pre-snap penalties. And they've done a pretty good job of cleaning that up. So I'm not going to claim to have as high of a football IQ as Jimbo Fisher. I'm sure there's some things on his mind. But right now, I think it's just taking a 1 week at a time approach, because every team left on your schedule can still potentially scare you. And there's only one ranked team left, which is Auburn on the road. But you know what? Ole Miss has an offense that can score. And Tennessee has a defensive line that could potentially pose some challenges for you. I mean, every team has its own set of skills that they're going to bring to the table. And I know everybody kind of wants to knock Texas A&M off right now. So as long as they just keep this consistent approach rolling, probably just trust their coaches and try to make the adjustments that they're going to have to make with everything going on with COVID. I've been told that an entire position group has actually been wiped out right now. So definitely some challenges to face there. But that's the biggest area of concern for me, is really just kind of getting back on the field, recovering from this contact tracing mess that they're in right now. And then once things come back, just keep the momentum rolling, because it's probably more than anything a mental game at this point.
This is what we do, folks, on a daily basis. Discussion, debate, and analysis. Please subscribe. Hit the bell for the notifications. That way you know when we're going live with team-specific live streams and call-in shows. Leah Musgrave, join her at texaggs.com, Texas A&M football coverage. We thank you so much, Leah, for joining us for several weeks now. Your insight into Aggie football has been phenomenal. And considering the season, especially the way it's going, it's just been great to have you on.
Oh, absolutely, Mark. Happy to be here and happy to see things keep rolling. And hopefully things will end up with A&M finishing out 9-1, and then we'll have a different conversation in a few weeks from now.